Good afternoon and welcome to the Humidor Report. Justin here from Beaumont's very own cigar club. Two completely new creatures, not just new to us. What we have here is a couple of offerings from Aladino. And if you're not familiar with Aladino, that is Julio and Justo Eiroa, father and brother to Christian Eiroa. Christian and Julio were the ones that had Camacho back in the day and now have started their subsequent companies. Christian with Tobacco Unidas, who has Eiroa, CLE, and Asylum. Julio, who has J.R.E. tobacco with Justo, and the Aladino brand as far as what we carry here. Now, the two that we have here both saw their, at least in these incarnations, saw the first light of day at this year's TPE trade show back in March. Now, last year, I believe it was the creation of the Aladino Candela. Now, when it arrived last year, it was only available in a 5x50 Robusto size. This Toro size that we have here is what was launched at this year's trade show. And this is a little bit of a throwback because it does kind of harken back to the Camacho days for the Eiroas, and even Julio and his granddaughter Vivi, who speaks on behalf of the company sometimes, have kind of talked about this being a throwback to the Camacho Candela that was also Robusto only back in the day and had that Candela wrapper. Now, to talk about Candela wrappers for a bit, I mean, you can tell it is a very, very pale, very green leaf. But what happens with the Candela process, the reason Candelas were first created, it was really due to a lack of time. Back, I want to say it was in the 1940s or so, there was a particular brand of Cuban cigar that was insanely popular in the U.S., and they couldn't make enough of the product to the point that they were finally just shipping under-fermented wrapper leaves on the cigars just to meet the demand. And it made it a new trend. It made it a fad. And that fad even kind of came and went in various incarnations, even up through the 80s and the 90s, but now has become much more the exception than the rule. One neat thing about this, though, is I don't believe I've ever had anybody specify what varietal of tobacco they're using to make that Candela. Because Candela is a color shade, a color grading, not a varietal. Where your varietals are going to be Connecticut Broadleaf, Connecticut Shade, Brazilian Matafina, Corojo, Habano, Sumatra, so on and so forth. Candela is a color grade. But we do know for a fact that this is a Corojo seed Candela grown at Julio's Corojo Farms there in Jamastran, Honduras. Now, this box does not say anything about it being limited edition, but from the things that I'm reading about it and the press releases and articles I read on it, it does look like this was limited to 1,200 20-count boxes for the Toro version of the Camacho Candela. And we have two of those 1,200 20-count boxes, so this is one that probably won't last very long, and if you want to check it out, get it while you can. Now we're going to move right here next to it to a box that does say limited edition, and strangely enough, the articles that I can find on it so far say it is regular production. It is a higher end product from them. It is actually supposedly kind of taking the place of the Corojo Reserva number 4, which was an 800 box annual release that they did for a couple of years. They have stopped making that and wanted to make a new limited special thing, which is this Sumatra, the Aladino Sumatra. Does say limited edition, but I've not been able to find any numbers, and the one article I read that had details on it says it is regular production, so I guess we'll have to see. To tell you about it, there's really not much we can say because the blend is undisclosed. But we do know that Julio spent some 5 years or so growing Sumatra seed in their farms there in southern Honduras as well. And it took him those 5 or 6 years or so before he got satisfied with either the wrapper leaf that was being grown in the fields, or finally found blend suitable enough to go with that Sumatra wrapper leaf. Either way, here it is. It is a dark Sumatra, actually. It's got a nice darker color than I typically expect to see on Sumatras. It is actually tissued and cellophane. I've never seen that before, but something about that appeals to me too. I think it makes for a good presentation, and I kind of like it. But again, don't know if these are going to be limited or not, despite the name on the box. But we do at least have 2 boxes of these in the house now for you to try. And if you know anything about us here at Cigar Club, we tend to really dig what the Eiroas do. And I've said for years, if Julio grows it or Christian blends it, I'm interested. And here we've got Julio growing and Julio blending, and I think we got another couple of hits from the Aladino family and Justo and Julio Eiroa right here at Cigar Club, ready to go. So that's going to wrap up this week's edition of the Humidor Report. If you haven't done so yet, make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. That way you stay up to date with what is hip and happening here at Cigar Club. We'll be back with you next week with more new product and more interesting things to talk about here in Southeast Texas. And until then, I'm Justin, and we'll see you at the club.